Yo YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy SalvationsElite. We're back with another video, guys, and today we're talking about esports, we're talking about organizations, and we're talking about why they just screw it up sometimes and why they can't get it right, because there's a lot of organizations out there that they build their esports orgs around solely around winning and about being the best esports team in that specific esport or whatever it is. And I truly believe that's not the right way to do it. And this all came about because I was watching Nadeshot Selfmade podcast. Well, I mean, his podcast is called Selfmade, and Fwiz was the guest on the show. That was just this week. We'll watch a clip of it in this video a little bit later, but basically they were talking about how to create brands and the value of content creation inside the brands itself. And overall, I just thought it was so good and extremely valuable, and I wanted to talk about that same thing in this video. I've had this idea actually down, like legitimately on my like ideas doc or whatever for a while to talk about content in esports, but I just never got around to it. I thought this would be a good time because of Nadeshot and Fwiz's talk. So again, like I said at the beginning, a lot of orgs believe that winning equals fans, which I mean, that is the case. Like, winning does draw fans, obviously. But what's more important is the content and the story building around the teams that you have. And what we've seen in the past is obviously like OpTic and FaZe's success with content creation inside of the Call of Duty or gaming world itself, or inside of the esports world as a whole. And then recently we've seen 100 Thieves' success doing that same model with the content creation around their esports teams. And that's been an insanely effective way to create an esports brand for a long time. But so many orgs just do not care about content whatsoever, or they kind of care. They sign like one or two streamers, they might sign like one YouTuber. They don't go all in on it. They don't go to the extent that they need to go to actually make it worth their time. And a lot of orgs inside of Call of Duty have kind of done that in the last 3 or 4 years, where they've kind of done content, but they never go all in, and they're never good enough at it to make it worthwhile. And 100%, if these orgs do content right, it's going to work and they're going to be successful. So I'm mostly just gonna be sticking to like NA orgs, North American orgs, and basically just Call of Duty when I'm talking about this, because most of my experience is in Call of Duty, so I don't want to talk like outside of my expertise, outside of what I actually know. So, you know, when it comes to like CS orgs or League of Legends or Dota or whatever, you know, teams in those areas, I'm not going to be as familiar with that, and so I'm not going to talk about that specifically. I'm mostly going to focus around Call of Duty. So when it comes to like the beauty of content, let's just go back and look at OpTic in the good old days, all right? Before all the Infinite, before all the Immortals, before all of this, when their content was actually incredible. So, you know, they had like Hex, Nade, Scump, Big T, everyone making content inside of OpTic, and their teams were making content, so they'd sign somebody and then they'd start making content. And that basically just happened with everybody who ended up being on that team for some amount of time. Like, you know, JCap, Proofy, Rambo was making content, Ricky, I think he made some content, like just tons of guys who were on that team in that, like, you know, Black Ops 2 Ghost period when Call of Duty was really in its prime. They were all making content. So the beauty of what they were doing was they were basically driving casual fans into esports by creating content. This doesn't only help the teams, this helps the esport as a whole. I mean, back in Black Ops 2 and in Ghost, tournaments were getting tons of viewership. Like, you know, 100,000+ every single time. Even the small games were getting pretty good viewership. And like the OpTic championship games or big matches were getting hundreds of thousands of viewers. Like, this was big time stuff back then, and Call of Duty's been trying to get back to that peak for as long as possible. The difference is that the content that was being made around the esports side of Call of Duty just is not there anymore, which really sucks, because I mean, I love it. I love creating content around competitive Call of Duty, and so many of those guys who were making content back then were the reasons why I'm making content now. So it sucks that so many of those guys don't make content anymore, and there's a lot of reasons why. So first of all, I'll just show you some of the screenshots of some of these guys' channels. Like, it's actually mind-blowing. So guys like Big T, Censor, Clayster, JCap, Embos, Nadeshot, Fizzerp, Rambo, Nameless, Scump, Sharp. Like, so many guys were making content, like I said. I mean, again, like I said, there were so many others as well that were making content around like that Black Ops 2 Ghost period that was driving casual fans into competitive, and it was really boosting the whole scene as a whole. Now we have like a few guys who make content, kind of, but like back then, the content that they made was acceptable for what YouTube was at the time. Like, nowadays, that same content feels like it's so lackluster. You're barely putting any effort into it. Like, certain guys might upload just stream clips of them playing with no intro, no outro, no story at all within the episode at all. It might just say like Scrim, 100 Thieves versus E6, you know, and then that's like the video. And there's no intro, there's no outro. Like, the content could be so much better, man, but it's just not. And like, the issue is like, you know, back then guys were vlogging, as you guys saw in those screenshots, like Anaheim vlog, and all these guys are vlogging. So like, throughout those vlogs, all of the fans of those players get to know other players, and those guys see other guys vlogging in their clips. So like, they're going and checking out everybody else's channels. Now, no pros are vlogging any of the channels, or no pros are vlogging any of the games, you know. And the only orgs that are really killing it in content right now are orgs that are doing documentary series about their teams or about their players or about their orgs in general. And so there's such a massive gap, a massive hole in the content around competitive Call of Duty. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Like, the pros stopped partly because Call of Duty did get less popular, so naturally they were getting less views. The other thing is that contracts inside of Call of Duty in general got so much better and bigger that players didn't have to stream anymore. Like, back in the day, like, literally Nadeshot like talks about how he had to stream for him to make money playing Call of Duty. Like playing competitively was not an option as a job. Now it is. Like, you can get a good contract by playing in the CWL, playing on a team who makes the pro league, you know? So that's the difference, is that, you know, there's so many pros who just give up on content creation because it's hard or takes too much time or whatever it is. At the end of the day, though, they could just hire like a content brand manager. I mean, hey, if any of you big boys are out there wanting one, I mean, I might be interested. Just saying. But, you know, anyway, like, the content is so important, and it's just been missing in the past few years from competitive Call of Duty. The pros aren't vlogging anymore, and it really hurts the scene in general. And esports orgs need to take advantage of that. There's so much opportunity there for growth and to capture the audience's attention. And even though Call of Duty's not as popular as it used to be, the part of that is because the casual fans still aren't being driven to competitive Call of Duty anymore. Now, of course, Activision has that responsibility because they have the money behind the scene. But in the past, the pros were doing such a good job of creating a hype around their own games. Like, Scump would be, you know, vlogging about his last game, or would talk about the problems that they had. After every single series, they would recap what happened over the event. And I remember thinking that those were awesome, and I absolutely loved like every recap video from like Clay or Scump or whoever it was, Crim or Nade or whoever was making the recap videos at the time back during Black Ops 2 or Ghost. I would go and watch them all. I loved hearing the recaps from their perspective of what went right, what went wrong. And they'd go, a lot of times, like Scump would go like back like game by game of the whole weekend and talk about the pros and cons of each match, or what they did well and what they didn't do well. And I love that, and I think a lot of people really did. But at the same time, I loved his pubs games as much as I loved his competitive games. And I originally, back in Black Ops 2, came from a pub side of things, and that's when I transferred over into competitive interest and really liking competitive Call of Duty. And that was because of YouTube and because of content. And so that's why I personally like see the value in the content and how important it is for the competitive scene in general. And I just really hope that more pros and more orgs see the value in competitive Call of Duty. Like, let's say, for example, Carnage Clan. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Carnage Clan, but they're a pub stomping, quote-unquote pub stomping org, where they basically only have pub stompers. But like, for them, if they wanted to create an esports org that actually had like a Call of Duty team, of course, it's not as likely now that there's franchising, but if they wanted, to have their own Call of Duty team, they could really drive fandom through their casual fans into the competitive scene. And this is an idea that I've had for a while, and I really want this to happen for MLG, and I actually reached out and talked to a few people there. But anyway, an idea was to, pair pub stompers with competitive players. So like, you pair Dismo, who's in Carnage, with Scumpy, and then they're making videos together. So Dismo's fans learn who Scumpy is, Scumpy's fans learn who Dismo is. It'd be a great partnership, and like something that MLG could really easily do, and I think it'd be a really easy way to promote Call of Duty and promote competitive Call of Duty in general. But it's just been such a missed opportunity as a whole, from every aspect, from MLG to Activision to the pro players themselves to the esports orgs. Overall, so many missed opportunities with the effect that content can have on the scene in general, and the benefit that can have for pros brands, for esports brands, for MLG's brand. It's just disappointing that there's not more content in the competitive space, and I hope that there will be more in the future. So basically, to wrap it all up, let's just watch this clip from Nadeshot and Fwiz and Jackson. Got a shout out for Jackson. He liked my tweet that I tweeted out last night. And all three of them were talking about the value of content and how to drive casual fans into competitive Call of Duty on Nadeshot's Selfmade podcast. So let's check that out right now. Let's go right into the clip.
My goal is to introduce casual gamers that are watching gaming on YouTube. So they're obviously, I would say they're probably core gamers, not hardcore, and introduce them more into esports and get them associated. And I think what's missing is, you don't have these Michael Jordan, like, right? They might be a great esports player, but they don't have a huge YouTube channel and they don't have a Twitch channel that's big. And so you're starting to see people like Shroud, but then you still see some economic disparity there where if it's better to be a full-time streamer or a full-time YouTube creator than to be a part of an esports organization, that's a problem as well. So I actually see us progressing a lot in the esports space, like Courage signing and so forth is like a great example, right? And I think of people making sure to introduce, like, you don't have to be an esports person. Like, I love the idea of 100 Thieves having Courage because it introduces people into the team. So what OpTic Gaming did really well in the early years and FaZe did really well. You should have these people that bring you into the brand and educate you about esports. OpTic did this so well on YouTube where they were like a sniping organization and then became an esports. They kind of did it the other way, right? Yep. And so they were leveraging all these people. All of your fan base in the early days came from people that were not esports, and they didn't give a shit about esports, and certainly not Call of Duty.
That was their introduction to it.
Yeah, and so they were like, oh, I'm a Nadeshot fan, and I know he's competing this weekend, so I'm going to watch it. Right? Yep. And so, like, I just think there's a lot. I think there's a lot to be said about the way people think about it. And so I'm actually long-term super bullish on esports.
That's all I needed.
Yeah.
That's all the answer I wanted.
Things take time.
When you get the answer you're looking for, everybody stop talking.
Yeah, man, I love that clip so much. Fwiz is dropping bombs, telling it how it is, and I just really appreciate that. The whole Courage signing with 100 Thieves is so great, and exactly what I was thinking when Courage signed originally. Hopefully, he just continues to create more love around esports in general. And like the saying of, like, when the water rises, all the boats rise with it. So hopefully esports can just get bigger and bigger, and that rises the Call of Duty, competitive Call of Duty boat in general as well. So overall, guys, I know I'm just pounding home the value of content, but it is just that important. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, like, favorite and subscribe, sure to be if you guys really enjoy it. I really do appreciate all of the support, and I'll be announcing the next community tournament here in either on Sunday or on Monday, so be on the lookout for that. But as always, guys, I'm your boy SalvationsElite, and we'll see you next time. I'm out.